It's July 11th, 1804, and Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton face each other, gun in hand, waiting to shoot the other. But how did it get this way? What made the feud between these two men lead to a duel to the death? Well, we actually have to go back to the beginning of the Constitution. You see, in early American politics, there were generally two schools of thought regarding the Constitution. The Federalist interpretation of the Constitution, which advocated for a strong centralized federal government and a loose interpretation of the Constitution, while Democratic Republicans believed in a strict interpretation of the Constitution, which favored strong states' rights and protection of individual civil liberties. So both Hamilton and Burr were already opposites in a political spectrum, but it is in 1790 when Hamilton and Burr's first major skirmish occurred. You see, Hamilton was already a major player in New York state politics, so when Democratic Republican Aaron Burr came along and won a Senate seat against Hamilton's father-in-law in 1791, Hamilton fumed. In the election of 1800, the rivals would once again meet in the political battleground. Burr published a confidential document, The Public Conduct and Character of John Adams, written by Hamilton. Hamilton's document severely criticized his fellow Federalist President John Adams. Hamilton's criticisms, now public, caused a huge rift in the Federalist Party, which ultimately led to them losing the election. However, the electoral procedure in the early days of the US were very different, as President and Vice President were not voted for separately. Like today, the candidate who received the most votes was elected President, but the Vice President was simply the person who had the second most votes. Jefferson and Burr were tied with 73 electoral votes each. Burr was expected to step down and take the Vice President seat, but he refused, so the deadlock would be broken by the House of Representatives. Hamilton vigorously campaigned against Burr and urged his fellow Federalist members of Congress to side with Jefferson. Jefferson did ultimately win the vote and became president, much to the dismay of Burr, who bitterly accepted the position of Vice President. Burr and Hamilton's mutual hatred of each other accumulated in 1804, when Burr's breaking point with Hamilton was finally reached. Since it became apparent that President Thomas Jefferson would drop Burr from his ticket in the 1804 election, Burr actually joined a faction of Federalists in order to get elected as governor of New York. However, as always, Hamilton sought to curtail Burr's ambitions at any chance. So Hamilton decided to talk to his fellow Federalists in order to get them to drop Burr as their candidate. He probably didn't do that much, but the Federalist Party decided to drop Burr, causing him to run as an independent. Shortly after his subsequent defeat, a newspaper published a letter from Dr. Charles D. Cooper, who stated while at a dinner conversation, Hamilton called Burr a dangerous man and one who ought not to be trusted with the reins of government. Burr demanded Hamilton to recant his quotes, but he refused. Burr responded by challenging Hamilton to a duel in order to regain his reputation and honor. Hamilton actually wanted to avoid the duel, but politics left him no choice. He would lose his honor if he admitted to Burr's charge, and he would lose his honor if he refused to duel. On July 11th, around 7 a.m., the two enemies met at the Weehawken Dueling Grounds in New Jersey. Accompanying the men were their two seconds. William P. Van Ness, a New York City federal judge, acted as Burr's second, while Hamilton brought Judge Nathaniel Pendleton as his second hand, along with Dr. David Hosack. The enemies stood across from each other, pistols in hand, waiting to fire. The tension was high as the world was silent, and then both men shot their pistols, though only one remained standing. It is debated whether Hamilton deliberately missed Burr or if he simply didn't hit him, but it didn't matter, as Burr hit his shot directly into the stomach of Alexander Hamilton, which caused him to die about 30 hours later. The duel sparked extreme controversy throughout the United States, and many became extremely furious that such a prominent American hero was shot by the Vice President. Burr hoped that the duel would restore his reputation and political career, but he effectively became ostracized for his actions. Arrest warrants were issued for Burr, though he fled to Philadelphia and carried out the rest of his term as Vice President.